Good evening. Welcome. I'm looking forward, well, that's not exactly true. I was going to say I was looking forward to having this conversation tonight. Um, Part of me is called to have this conversation tonight. I literally woke up this morning with thoughts of this Facebook Live and essentially was given the information that I was meant to share. And it's obviously coming up in a way that, yes, I can share it to support the purpose of this Facebook Live tonight, which is loving yourself to health and wealth. And it's also obviously coming up tonight because there's something in it for me to be healed, because since writing about this morning, since going about my day, since going for a walk earlier, emotions have been coming up. There are things, just bubbling under the surface. So you may see some expression of emotions tonight, and I guess I'll put a little disclaimer or warning out there. There is going to be a conversation about emotions. There is going to be a conversation about topics that may make people a little uncomfortable. You may hear some things that you don't want to hear, or that make you uncomfortable in some way, or even maybe angry in some way. You may find yourself going, ooh, I don't know. I'm feeling a lot of things right now, so I'm not exactly sure what direction things are going to take this evening, and it already feels a little bit sensitive and raw. So the reason I'm doing this is because emotions are not always supported when they're expressed. They're not often allowed fully. We, in many cases, stuff or ignore our emotions. And my experience personally and in supporting others is that when we stuff our emotions, when we ignore our emotions, at some point they're going to come up and make themselves known, and probably not at a time that you would choose. So it's one of the reasons why I'm putting this conversation out there. Me living a life that I'm loving as I create it, that continues to expand, that is vibrant, that is loving, that is authentic, is very much tied to my willingness and my ability to recognize my emotions, give myself permission to experience and feel those emotions, and to release them on an emotional level, but also from my physical body as well. And I did not understand the full depth and level that emotions contributed to the health and well-being of our lives. On my walk just a little while ago, I guess about an hour ago, I even found myself asking the question, more for others, more for you, and that is, do we even understand what health really means? Do we really understand what healing really means? I don't know that I grasped the full depth of that until sometime in the past decade, and I would even say I'm still learning. So, as always, if you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to share them below. The video, if it's live, I will at some point address them. If it's the recording, I will come back and address them. And if you join, again, either live or watch it later, say hello. Let me know that you were here. Let me know that you joined us. Let me know what you thought. I would love to hear from you. This is certainly one of the reasons for having Facebook Lives, is to connect with others, so that way you and others know that you're not alone. So in waking up this morning and having this topic of emotions being the topic to address tonight, the things that came to mind initially were, I don't know that I was ever really taught to express emotions, to feel emotions, that I was given permission or allowed. I don't remember grief being expressed or sadness being expressed unless someone was like really sick or had passed away. I don't remember anger or even frustration being expressed until it had built up to a point that it just exploded to some degree out of people. Now, I'm not suggesting physical abuse or anything like that, but as a kid, it was scary because in my house, anger did not get expressed. Anger was not something I witnessed. I can remember going to a friend's house in high school, and her sister, and her parents started arguing and started yelling at each other. I wanted to crawl under the table and hide. I was so uncomfortable and on some level so scared because I had never witnessed something like that. I could not have imagined arguing, forget about yelling, at my parents. I had never seen it. I'd never experienced it. And so that was like what I remember of emotions early in my childhood. At some point around the age of 12, for reasons I did not begin to understand until my 20s, my dad stopped speaking to me. On some level, stopped acknowledging my existence. Now, I'm very happy to say, with what I've discovered about emotions and my ability to express them, that our relationship has changed significantly. But at the time, it was painful. It was uncomfortable to be in a house with a person who didn't acknowledge me, with no known reason as to why. It was never discussed. On the occasions that I tried to discuss it, it was basically brushed off and not acknowledged. So I made a decision. My beliefs, I would say, came into play. And I made a decision at that time that I was just going to be the most positive person I could be. And hey, Jerry, that I was the most positive person that I could be. And that if I focused on the positive around me, then maybe everything would be okay. I could turn anything into the positive. I could find the positive in pretty much anything. And while on the surface that sounds really great, what it also meant was, when I was sad, when I was frustrated, when I was hurting or angry or expressing any other or feeling any other emotion, I had no idea what it was. I had no idea what to do with it, except ignore it and stuff it and look for the positive. That continued through high school. It continued after high school. And eventually what it led to was me being in an abusive relationship. I thought if I just loved enough, everything would be okay. It was not. And then it led to me having panic attacks And eventually it led to me attempting suicide. I think I was around the age of like 29. And at that point, I was grateful. I mean, it sounds so strange, and there were so many things that contributed in the immediate time period around my suicide attempt and the almost 3 decades leading up to it. There were so many things that were happening. I had moved south. I was living, 15 hours away from family. I had made a few friends, but overall, the support system I had grown up with, or the friends that I knew back home, I mean, they weren't there. They weren't around. And so I found myself trying to navigate all of this by myself. And there were a lot of emotions that I could no longer navigate on my own. Hey, Monica, welcome. And so when that suicide attempt happened, I would say there was a lot of drama in my life, but it was a big wake-up call. It provided me an opportunity to realize that if circumstances had changed just a little bit, that I no longer would have been here. I no longer, obviously would have been alive. And that was an opportunity for me to ask myself and spend time with myself saying, what do I really want? What is it in my life that I want? And at that point, consciously chose, one, to leave drama out of my life, which also meant, in some cases, choosing to no longer associate with some people. But it also meant that I had to start to get really clear on what it is I wanted. And it gave me an opportunity to say, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want to be doing in my life? And as I started to pay attention to me, to give myself the time and the space and the acknowledgement on everything that was going on in my life, that led to things starting to really change. It was my acknowledgement of my emotions, whatever they might be. And it may sound strange, but I didn't even really know exactly what they were. But just the fact that I was giving them some space, I could see my life start to open up. I could see my healing start to happen, my health start to improve. I found myself with a new job that I loved and certainly brought in a lot more money, I should say. And I did like it better than the one that I had had previously. And while that did help and it did make a difference, hello, Anna, welcome. While it did make a difference, it still wasn't enough, because if you think about it, I had 30 years at this point of emotions, what I call from the rainbow of emotions that I had been stuffing. If it wasn't positive, I didn't acknowledge it. But what I was doing was not acknowledging myself. I mean, if we think of ourselves, yes, there's a light and there's a dark within us. There's a happy and a sad. There's joy and anger. And all of that is us. And what I've come to understand is loving every aspect of me. Hello, Kathy. Every aspect of me is my number one purpose in life. That it is loving myself when I love the parts that are angry. That it is loving when I allow grief. Now, it wasn't until I want to say it was about I guess in my 40s, I really started to recognize how little I understood about my emotions. I had been in a relationship. It wasn't working out really well. We decided to go to a therapist, and the therapist asked me a question. how did I feel about something that was shared in a session? And I answered, and he said, no, I want to know how you feel. So I gave him a different answer. And he's like, no. He's like, I hear what you're saying. He's like, but I want to know the emotion. And I said, I gave you an emotion. And he's like, no, you didn't. And I was giving him answers, but none of them were emotions, because when it really came down to it, I didn't know how I felt. I did not have an emotion that I could give him. And that, I would say, is what really began my journey to know more about myself, to recognize more about myself, and to start allowing my emotions to be expressed. I was pretty fortunate. I did connect with a gentleman who became, a support for me at this time and helped me start to identify the emotions that I was experiencing. And even though this was one of the most difficult times in my life, because I found myself out of a relationship, on the border of being homeless, about $35 in the bank. Oh, and that was both my bank accounts, business and personal. That despite all of that, as I recognized, acknowledged, and allowed my emotions to be felt, to be expressed, that my life continued to grow and expand. Now, I know a bunch of you have joined since I started speaking, and what I want to say is, if you have questions, if you have comments, feel free to post them below, and I will answer them at breaks as we move forward. And if you make them after the live has ended, I will get back to you. But I would love to know you're here, so say hello if you have not. And yeah, and if there's something that you want to share, let me know. Okay. So as I was saying, it was this time that, even though, and I can remember, at one point, like with the $35 in my bank account, this support person, this gentleman in my life, saying, I could still choose to be happy. And I was like, what? Like, you're crazy. How can I choose to be happy when I don't know where my next meal is going to come from? And he's like, well, being stuck on that, being focused on that, is not necessarily going to change your circumstances. And now, one of the differentiations he made, which I think was crucial, is it's one thing to choose happiness. It's another thing to stuff and ignore anger, grief, sadness, and all these, what we often term negative emotions. He opened up the possibility that I could choose happiness through expressing myself fully, being who I was fully, and recognizing those pieces and parts of me that I had deemed negative and tried to, stuff deep down inside of me and pretend that they didn't exist. Now, where I felt like things really started to change was a few years ago when my nephew, who was in his early teens, got sick, and eventually it led to his death at the age of 17. The emotion that I had been stuffing came up. It was coming out one way or another. And after he passed, and I found myself back here in North Carolina, he was living in Mass, and I found myself sad, grieving every day, and having a hard time running my practice, showing up each morning. I was canceling a lot of appointments. And I was fortunate at that time to have a number of healers that I worked with, who I shared space with. And when I said, I really feel like I need to give myself more space and more time to grieve, they said, do it. I'm like, can I do that? And they were like, of course you can. Now you think about it, when we're growing up, when we're kids, we're never, well, I won't say everybody. I'm sure there are some out there who did have some role modeling or did have some support or even some education around emotions, around feelings, that they were given permission to express anger and grief and sadness in a healthy, appropriate way. That was not something that occurred in my upbringing. And then if you think about our system, when the people in our life pass, if we work for a company or a corporation of some kind, depending on who that person is or how important they are supposed to be based on their role in our life, we're given a set amount of time paid off, as if that's all the time that we're supposed to allow ourselves. Hello, Aunt Sue. And I've come to realize, like, that's so ridiculous. But it's like, we're supposed to get things back on track. We're supposed to get back to our everyday business, our everyday life. And Kathy is saying 3 days. And that's what most corporations say is the, appropriate allotted time. And, well, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. A role that somebody has in our life does not indicate the level of grief that we might be experiencing. And yeah, so fortunately I worked for myself and I was able to cancel my mornings. I love you too, Aunt Sue. I canceled my mornings for weeks. I mean, it was like 6 weeks at least. And when I considered going back to mornings, I realized I was just not ready. And again, I said something to my friends and partners, and they were like, then don't do it. Of course, when I did go into the office, when I did have my appointments, when people were coming in, I tried to pretend that I was good, I was okay. And somebody would say, like, how you doing? And I'd burst into tears, on some level horrified and apologizing. And what I came to discover was not only was it a gift I gave myself to allow myself the time and space to express all of these emotions, as I interacted and shared with people who came into their appointments what was going on and what I was doing for myself, I realized I was giving them permission to grieve as well. I can remember a couple of instances. One woman who says, I'm not sure why I'm here today. I'm feeling pretty good, but I knew I was supposed to make an appointment. She asked me how I was. I burst into tears. Before you knew it, we were both crying our eyes out. And after her appointment was done, she said, thank you. That's why I needed to be here. She's like, I had this emotion to release, and yeah, so thank you. Another woman realized that she had not grieved the passing of her father from a couple of years ago. That she was somebody that went back to work and got back to the everyday business of life, and that after hearing what I was gaining, the gift that I was gaining from giving myself that time and space, that she went home and cried off and on for the next few days and came back and again said thank you. She's like, I didn't give myself time to grieve, and then I was guilty and felt shame because my father was such an important person in my life and I hadn't given myself that time. So why do I share, why am I sharing this story or these stories? Because, this is a lot. Is because it is so important and so crucial for us to not only acknowledge and feel our emotions when they occur, not only when somebody passes away or when somebody is sick or when some major event happens, but as it comes up every day throughout our day. Because keeping those emotions inside is what, in my opinion, in my experience at this point, is what led to panic attacks. It's what led to my suicide attempt. It's what led to me feeling alone, to me feeling like I didn't belong. I mean, it contributed to all of that. And it's only in the past decade or so that I understand how important it is not only to support our own emotions, to feel our own emotions, to allow them, but to give others the time and space to do it as well. And I'll be the first one to say, feeling emotions is not always comfortable. Sometimes it really sucks. At the same time, what I've learned is as I allow them to come up, as I experience them, on some level it gets easier because I understand it's healing. I understand it's health. I understand it's about loving myself. And as I release those emotions, I'm not storing them and stuffing them in my body. And it is allowing me to allow other things into my life. If I have filled my life with that stuffed anger, emotion, grief, and what other negative emotion I might have stuffed, then there's not room for happiness, joy, and love at the same level and depth that it is when I allow that space to be open and available to it. I hope that's making sense to people. Again, if you've just joined and you have questions, you have comments, you're coming in the middle of this, I mean, feel free to ask. And feel free to share what circumstances you might be running into, or whatever might come up that will support you, that will allow you to be able to feel them, express them, and move through them. And that's what Monica is saying right now. She says, I'm definitely feeling the emotions, but just want to get to the other side of it so bad. I can hear you on that. What my experience has shown me is as we get more comfortable expressing our emotions, allowing our emotions, when they come up, when they occur, they process through easier, they move through easier. And when I say easier, it's all relative. Because depending on what you're going through, depending on what experience might have led you to be where you are, easier may not feel so easy at times. At the same time, I'm working with people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, almost 80s. And when that is happening, it's been stuffed for so long, that it almost feels impossible. What I can tell you, and this is part of my tips and tools, absolutely, to loving yourself. Reach out, make sure you have a support system. And that support system, depending on who that person or people are, they may not know how to respond. And one of the things that I had to learn and start sharing with people is you don't need to say anything. There's not necessarily a right thing to say. There's not a right thing to do. Just being there and saying, I'm here, can make all the difference in the world. At this point, the people that I work with in my practice, one of the gifts that has been given to me in the past that I feel like I'm passing it on and paying it forward is you have support when you work with me. You're going to have somebody who not only supports you, who's available to work with you, who is also going to provide a space for safety and non-judgment. These things are crucial. They're crucial. So if you can offer this to others, and don't feel like you have to get it right or you're going to always get it right. You're probably not. That's okay. You do get better at it. And what I'd say to Monica and to others who want to get to the other side so bad, don't try to force it. Don't try to push it. Again, give yourself the space, the time that your body is asking for, that your being is asking for. It's going to vary from person to person. It's going to come out in different ways. Now, one of the things that I've done, that I do at this point when emotions come up, or I feel like they're going to come up, if I can allow them when they come up, I do. I try to give it as much time and space as possible, and then support my body in the best way that I know how to. Sometimes that might mean rest. Sometimes it might be getting outside and exercise, getting out in the woods. It might be watching a movie with a friend. That can vary. Sometimes it just wants some quiet. The other thing is sometimes we find ourselves in places or circumstances where it's absolutely feels like the wrong time or place for these emotions to come up. At that point, if you decide, okay, I'm going to shut this off for the moment, literally look at your schedule or think about your schedule. Where is the earliest next available time that you can give yourself time and space to allow those emotions to come up? And then schedule it. Have that conversation with your body, much like you would a very best friend who says, I could use your support. You might not be able to drop things right in that moment, but you certainly can say, you know what? I can't be there right this second, but I can be with you at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And you're going to show up. Do that for yourself as well. Give yourself that priority. It might mean canceling some appointments, rearranging things, because in the scheme of things, you are your priority. Absolutely, you are your priority. You can't support others, you can't do your job, there's so many things that you're not going to be able to do to the level that you want to, that you're called to, if you're not taking care of yourself. Does that help, Monica? One of the things that I want to say right now is, for those of you who are going through something, who have gone through something, who may or are probably going to go through something in the future, allowing your emotions, expressing your emotions, giving yourself the time and space to heal, for your health to come through, is a courageous act. It absolutely takes courage, and you are courageous for doing it. We have been trained, we have been domesticated, we have been coerced and manipulated and all kinds of things from a very young age. Hello, Susie. Welcome. Yeah, from a very young age to do what's expected, to do what we're told to do what fits in society's norms, our culture's norms. We have not been shown how to take care of ourselves, how to love ourselves, how to honor and respect ourselves, and to allow who we are as individuals to be fully expressed. And that is why this is so important. It's important for our health and healing, and it's important for us to be fully who we are. I can tell you, Monica, and for everybody else out there, when you're showing up for you, when you're giving yourself the priority time and space, when you're recognizing and acknowledging all aspects of yourself, not just the pieces that you like or that you really want to show up, and Yeah. That when you do that, you absolutely will get through it. You absolutely will find yourself on the other side. And when you find yourself on the other side, things will come to you and you'll be like, oh, thank you. Thank you. And you'll realize the gratitude that, well, you'll have gratitude for what you did for yourself, because your life will open up and expand. And I would say in some ways beyond what you can imagine. And at that point, I haven't had anybody come to me, because of course I support a lot of people through this period. And when they get to the other side, and sometimes in the middle of it, they're like, ah! And I'm like, hang in there. You absolutely got this. And they do. They get through it and they come back. No one has ever said that wasn't worth it. No, they come back and they go, oh, I get it now. I understand. And they are excited. They start sharing everything. That starts opening up in ways, again, that they couldn't imagine. And I would say in most cases, as this becomes how you show up for yourself, and you start doing this more consistently and more regularly, what might have taken years or months or weeks then becomes days, hours, and minutes. Even those, big challenges. I have what you call, you have a breakdown, and that's when patterns, beliefs, well, shit tends to hit the fan and stuff breaks down. You process through it and you end up with the breakthrough. I was just sharing with some people in a group that I belong to that just this past week, I'm having breakdowns and breakthroughs all over the place, some of them happening simultaneously. While this is breaking down, this breakthrough is happening all in a matter of like 72 hours. Whoa. But I'm telling you, this is where you're headed when you show up and do this work for yourself, when you show up in a way that's loving for your health and your healing to come through. Now, I'm seeing here that Susie says there's guilt associated with taking time for yourself. Yes, I know a lot of us experience that. We were, again, from a very young age, told what was expected of us, shown what was expected of us. We often were expected to take care of everybody else first. And I can still say that even though now I have been doing this for over a decade, and I have these conversations with people regularly, and I talk about how important it is to take care of yourself, I still find it challenging at times for myself. Kelly will say to me sometimes, because she can almost see that struggle that's going on with me to be doing something, because I'm like, oh, I should be doing this, and taking care of myself when my body and my being is asking for me to take care of myself. Some days I'm better at it. Other days I need a reminder. But fortunately, I have her and others around me that do remind me. And because I have these conversations with people regularly, there'll be times that I'm saying something to somebody and I'm like, oh, that's a reminder to me too. Like, okay. And that's okay. What I would say at that time, when you feel guilty, take steps. We're not able to do all of it at once, but take steps in that direction. And of course, you can reach out to somebody like myself who can help you release that guilt, who can help you process through that guilt. And that's for any of this. The work that I do at this point And of course, if anybody has any other questions or comments or anything that they'd like to say, feel free to do it, or post, and I will respond. But I'm going to talk a little bit about some ways, in addition to the tips and tools that I've already shared, about loving yourself to health and wealth. And I say to health and wealth because all of this has brought more health to me in my life over the years. And when I talk health, I'm not just talking physical, I'm talking emotional, I'm talking mental, spiritual, on both a conscious and subconscious level. My life continues to change and evolve in a way that I love. Things that I never thought possible are happening. And I know it's because I show up and do this work for myself. So part of that, okay. Susie, before I continue where I was going, Susie is saying, I'm finding myself in the middle of grief again. And she's got capital letters. Yes, healing, well, it can frankly piss us off at times because it feels like you've done the work and you're going along and you're feeling pretty good. And then all of a sudden it feels like, boom, you got hit with it again. And not for nothing, but it's kind of like, what the fuck? Because what is this? And that's where I would say at this point, my work has led me, because I didn't want to have layer after layer feel like, okay, I've addressed it, going along, oh, hit with it again, addressed it, going along, hit with it again. And so the work that I do at this point is to address health and healing on a physical, emotional, spiritual, mental level, not just from the surface layers, but also from the core layers. And I would also add that instead of taking like one layer off at a time, we're able to process through numerous layers at a time. So that way, the roller coaster isn't so chaotic. You have more periods of growth, expansion, happiness, love, whatever it is that you're experiencing. And I would say the other thing that occurs is even when a layer, that next layer comes up, because it's going to come up, even when that next layer comes up, your perception of it, your beliefs around it start to shift. And they start to shift in a way that you go, ooh, here's an opportunity for healing. Here's an opportunity to love myself. Here's an opportunity to release something that's no longer serving me. So that way, hello, Dawn. So that way, in releasing that, and again, loving yourself, in this case, Susie says, loving herself through grief, you know that on the other side of that, your life is going to go open up and expand. But I think a lot of us have thought that, well, once we grieve a particular event, once we grieve, yeah, we're done. We want to be done. I'd like to say that that's the way it works, but it doesn't typically work that way. I mean, it can, depending on the circumstances, but I would say we start to recognize the gift that the next layer or level, when it shows up, is going to provide us. And I think that that's also one of the benefits of showing up for ourselves, putting ourselves first, making ourselves a priority, making our health and healing a priority, because we start to understand that. I mean, on some level, it can almost become a bit of a joke, like, okay, here we go again. And again, it doesn't always feel good when it's happening, but there's part of us, there's part of our awareness that while we're experiencing the grief, and it may be some really deep felt grief, but there's part of us that's aware that says, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for having the courage to do this work again. And the gift is waiting for you just on the other side. That bigger gift, because I think it is a gift to have that awareness even when it's happening. But you know the expansion's coming. I hope that helps, Susie. If you've got more thoughts or questions around that, you can absolutely share it. Yeah, Susie's saying she's really missing him. Susie, do you mind if I share a little bit about who you're missing? One of the things that I'm going to take a moment while I'm waiting for her to reply at this time is, as I mentioned, the work that I'm doing now, the work that I have evolved to, has been through my own grieving process, my own healing process, my own journey across over the years, and it's very different than what I ever expected to be doing. I would describe it at this point as intuitive healing, and it's my ability to communicate with your body and being and provide you with that information. And it leads to, a level of healing that I'm continuing to discover and uncover. So one of the things that I'm doing, because I want more people to be able to experience this work, I want more people, I want more people to be able to experience it. I want people to know about it. I want people to be able to eventually get to a point that they can do this for themselves. That this Tuesday night, this is for local people, though I am going to have one that's going to be remote. So whether you're here locally in Asheville, North Carolina area, or you live somewhere on the other side of the country, you're going to be able to take part in this moving forward as well, because I'm going to have a Zoom group healing in October. So, but Tuesday night, I am going to have a group intuitive healing session. And if you're wondering what that entails, check out one of my videos from last week. Last Wednesday, I did live intuitive healing for myself and for my wife in a video that kind of walks you through the steps. But if you're experiencing something in your life, that you want support with, that you want help clearing, that is contributing to grief, anger, that's getting in the way of you being able to show up and live the life the way that you want, then please join me on Tuesday. It is from 6:30 to 8:30, and it's $15 a ticket. Like I said, I want everybody to be able to experience this. So if anything I've said here tonight resonates, please join me on Tuesday, because what I'm saying is what I've learned, and a lot of it through my own healing and the work that I do, and it's the work that I do that has allowed me to get to this point. So Susie has said that I can share a little bit of what's going on with her. Her son passed away years ago at this point with an accident that happened at high school. And as you can imagine, even if you don't have kids, losing a child unexpectedly, heart-wrenching. And well, Susie, if you're open to this, I'd like to do a little check-in and a little clearing for you while we're on here. So let me know. The other thing that I would like to offer to people, I'm going to do these lives right now every Sunday night as long as I'm called to do them. I'm also doing lives. Hello, Tommy. Hello, Kat. I'm also doing lives on Wednesday night. Some of those lives are going to be with people that I'm going to do live healing sessions with, or people who have been under care who are going to help me tell about this work that you can do for yourself to help clear stuff that's ready to be cleared so you can fully heal and live your life. All right. I'm going to do a clearing right now with Susie, and then we're going to wrap up. All right, Susie, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check in to make sure that your body says yes to this, and it does. Okay, the next thing that I check in on, is it safe to proceed? Your body is telling me yes. And what's happening at this point is I receive information from Susie's body, from her being. I'm able to tap into that. So that's where I'm getting that information from. It's fabulous because it bypasses the mind. So it's safe to proceed. She's in the ideal posture. Okay, we're going to address some beliefs. Beliefs are one of the ways that we can get to the core and not just work on surface layers for healing. Susie, obviously we can't hear you, but out loud, wherever you are, I want you to say, I am safe. Okay, and her body is telling me no. And if you can imagine, if you don't feel safe in the moment, every decision, every experience you have is going to be different than if you did. So I'm going to do some clearing right now to clear what's blocking her from feeling safe, so she can be connected, again, physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, consciously and subconsciously, to feeling safe. All right. Okay, Susie, I'm going to ask you to say out loud again where you are, I am safe. Okay, and now her body is telling me yes. So whatever was it getting in the way, and that can be, it can be muscular, it can be toxins, it can be her spine being out of alignment, it can be old scar tissue, it can be emotional scar tissue, it can be something from when she was 2 or something that happened just today. But we clear that out from her body. And so now that pathway exists, that connection exists throughout her entire body and being for her to have that foundation of being safe. All right, let me see if there's anything else. All right, there's no other beliefs to address, but I am going to do a couple of other clearings. Okay. Is there anything that we can address around her grief for her son and missing her son? Yes. Okay, and one of the things that I will say to that, anytime we're doing clearing, obviously her love for her son, her experiences with her son, we're not touching any of that. What we are doing is making them less emotionally charged in a way that will allow her to, I would say, live the life she's being called to live. Live the life that her authentic self, that Susie, that's, the most loving, pure, essence of Susie that's living in the center of her to come out and be fully expressed. It doesn't in any way take away from the relationship she had with her son. It just allows it to not basically block her from living her life fully now. Susie, if you have any questions about any of this, absolutely, you can send me a message or contact me and we can talk about this further. So that gave you a little sense of some of what I do. Before I got on this call, about this live tonight, I did my own clearing. I did my own healing and checking in to make sure there wasn't any blocks for me to be at my best and show up fully tonight. All right, so as I mentioned, there is a group healing at my office on Tuesday night. You can go to the Intuitive Phoenix Facebook page and see that event there. I'll also post it in the comments below. Please come out. Like I said, this is powerful, powerful healing work, and feel free to share it with family and friends. I would love to see people there. Also, I'll be doing lives next Sunday and also Wednesday night this week. So that way, if you'd like to see another healing session, join me then. If you want to experience a complimentary healing session, an intuitive session, let me know, because you could be the person who joins me for the lives. Susie, I would love to see you on Tuesday, absolutely. It would be good to connect with you for sure, no question. And if any of this resonates with you and you just want to have a conversation with me, I also offer complimentary discovery sessions. So that way we can have a conversation. If I'm the right person to support you in the life that you want to create, a life that you love, so that way you can love yourself to health and wealth, like I'm doing. All right. I love you all. I am so glad to see so many of you this evening. And Kelly is reminding people, life-changing work, only $15 on Tuesday. And that's this Tuesday. And as she puts it, it's a fantastic opportunity. It is priced this way because I really do want everybody to have access. As always, I'm sending love and health and transformation to you. Until we connect next time, love y'all. Good night.